be a great time if you got any family stories you'd like to share.
Well, where do you want to start? You know, you've heard most of it. We came to this country very early. There was a man who had 2 sons from Scotland. And they sailed away to come to the new world. And a storm hit off the coast. They were supposed to land up around Boston. And they ended up down by North Carolina. And the eldest boy had the money belt, and he drowned. So that's how we ended up in Georgia. On your grandmother's side of the family, they came over pretty early. I think they came over in the early, I don't know if it was the early 1800s, because I know by mid 1800s they were here for sure, but I don't know the progression. Anyway, your grandmother started out in a grass dug hut. They used to make houses. They go to the side of a hill. They call it a sod house. And she could kill a rattlesnake with a bullwhip. Well, evidently her father, whatever his endeavors were, he prospered, and they, had a little bit of something, and sent her to a finishing school. Okay, and that's where she met your grandfather. Your great grandfather was at a dance. They met at a dance. They got married, and a few years later, he got stationed in the Philippines, and your grandmother was pregnant with your grandmother. Your great grandmother was pregnant with your grandmother.
Yeah.
And your grandmother ended up being born in Zamboanga in the Philippine Islands. So, up to that point.
Yeah.
And then your grandparents, after World War II, he came home. He was taking ROTC at the University of Georgia in Athens. Well, your grandfather's sister was good friends with your Aunt Dot. Okay? And those two got together and got your grandparents together. They're the ones that set all that up.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
I didn't know that story.
And let's see. So basically, you know about Aunt Marianne and Lou and Danny.
Well, yeah, you told me about
Yeah, you know all that.
I didn't know until recently about Aunt Lou being adopted.
She wasn't adopted. She's a half sister.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Grandma married this guy who turned out to be a super dick. And he expected her to do his stuff and his brother's laundry. He had several brothers, and it was like, I married you, not all these guys. And it became unworkable. And but Lou was born out of that marriage.
Right.
And then we come all the way down to the youngest member of the Bishop family.
Well, so how did it end up from Georgia to Florida?
Well, after the war, or after they got married, your great uncle Daniel, Uncle Dan, he had a really good job at Florida Favorite Fertilizer. And where Grandma's house sat, and the house next to it, and all the property across the street by the lake, he owned all of that. And Grandma's house sits on 4 city lots total. and your grandfather built a house right in the middle of it. Well, your Uncle Dan gave him that as a wedding present. That's how we ended up.
Yeah, because I was wondering why Lakeland or how Lakeland.
That's how it happened. Your Uncle Dan, he was a county commissioner. He was on the board of directors of the hospital there in Lakeland. Yeah, he was a well-known man. And then there's your grandfather, who was not a well-known guy like that, but he's a hard-working guy. And then I met your mom. We got married in Fabens.
So how did you meet Mom?
And I met her at a bar at a Holiday Inn. Her and Norma. And, then we went to Fort Bragg.
I guess I know you told her a few times, but why I got the camera rolling, tell the story of the raccoon, because that's a good one.
Oh, Pancho Villa Rackety Coon. Your Uncle Danny, he was a real true outdoorsman. And he used to hunt. He put out rabbit traps. He did all kinds of shit. And one day out of the woods, I guess he ran across his raccoon den, and the mother raccoon tried to lead him away, and he could hear the babies in the den.
Right.
He just reached his arm down there and grabbed one and brought it home.
That's terrible. So he ripped it away from its mother.
Yeah, but that raccoon was so spoiled. Holy moly. Yeah. He, during this time frame, Gomer Pyle was on TV, okay? And I was a little kid, and I had your great-grandfather's army blanket, and I would make that bed like an army cot or bed or whatever. I'd pull that thing tight because it had U.S., and I had to have it centered, I'm like 8 years old or whatever, And I remember I came home from school one day. Nothing had been disturbed yet. There was this big lump he had gotten underneath there. And I remember Grandma says, how did that raccoon get in there without disturbing it? He just laid flat, got where he wanted to go. And
you're masters of that stuff.
Oh man, that raccoon was so much fun.
Let's talk about Grandpa, how he would go to town.
He bought he had a 64 Riviera.
Aldi. That's good, right?
And he doesn't know. And in those days, to do all your banking, it was mostly done on Friday evenings at the drive-thru or whatever.
Okay.
He would put that raccoon in the car, and he'd get there by the back window and walk back and forth and watch the world. And the tellers loved it when he did that.
Yeah.
Oh, he thought he was just king shit. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Take that raccoon. We took that raccoon a lot of places. And he never ran from us. We'd call him, and he'd come right to us. Just like Ollie.
Yeah, that's cool.
In fact, I remember the dog we had, Puppy. What a good dog this dog was. He was sitting there. He was laying under the tree, the shade of the avocado tree in the back. There's 2 avocado trees Grandma had in the back. You probably don't know.
I got a big thing.
But anyway, he's laying in the shade there. I guess he was happy and he was wagging his tail. And we could see that raccoon. He was watching that tail there. And he ran and got on it. And Puppy went, rawr. Like that. That raccoon shot and went and these avocado trees were tall, man. He went all the way to the top and looked down, Finally, he came back down. But I couldn't believe him and that raccoon got along so well. But Danny, since that raccoon was a baby, he had him around Puppy. And Puppy figured out he's part of the family.
Yeah,
so he didn't screw with it. Puppy, that dog, I've seen that dog kill a moccasin before.
Yeah.
That dog was something else.
I guess that the other thing I'd like to ask you while we're rolling, any military history you would like to share?
I told you just about everything we
Yeah,
wanted
you
to
think so?
know.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I haven't reported any of it, so
The neatest one is
maybe in case there's ever some grandkids that mysteriously appear from somewhere.
the neatest one out of all of them was when I was in Africa, and we were training the Kenyans, and that's where I told you, walk outside the tent, 6 giraffes or 20 feet away from you walking by.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And in the NATO agreement, we could train them, we could do all this stuff, but when they went to go through the numbers, as it were, when they, what we had trained them to do and everything, we couldn't be there.
Right.
We could observe, but we couldn't assist.
Right.
So everybody's going to find their own little place. Everybody gets a different angle. It can watch what's going on and everything. And I found this little hole. It was almost looked like the Serengeti. It was flat,
Right.
surrounded by jungle, but it was a big area that was flat and grassy. This one little tree thing going out with a hole in it. I figured, a warthog or something had dug a hole in it.
Right.
Of course, I found something
Make
and
sure
made
it's
sure
no
there was
snakes,
nothing in there. And the sun was just coming up. I had this coffee in my hand, my canteen cup, and I kind of get snuggled in that hole. The mist is on, let me set it for you. The mist is on the Serengeti, so to speak, there. And I'm sipping coffee and just, you'll hear a whistle blow when they're about to make their contact to movement, or movement to contact rather. And I heard this sound like a horse galloping.
Mm-hmm.
I look and it's like it was some type of antelope. I don't know if it was a Thompson gazelle or whatever,
Yeah.
but it was, and it jumped. It went, and wow. And then I turned my head, and there was this lioness that was chasing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to make myself as small as I could in this hole. She jumped over. She went exact same path as that thing. And I could see the tips on her belly. And I thought, please don't let that lion smell me. Please don't let that lion smell me. She never came back.
Yeah.
And because I had this stupid knife and a cup of coffee. That's all I had. And but that put my heart in my throat. I won't lie.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It happened so fast, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I guess the second worst thing to really,
that was more like the best worst stage.
Yeah. We were jumping with this infantry company one time, and it's what's called a cross loading. You load with them and you jump where they jump, and when you do that, you have to assist in whatever equipment they have. Well, I got stuck with the fucking mortar platoon. Mortars are some heavy stuff, man.
Right.
And the plates they use to put the mortars on, who got stuck with the plate?
You did.
I did. And when you exit an aircraft like that, you're supposed to be able to jump out a whole yard, 36 inches. Okay? I think I not only had that plate, I had my equipment, my weapon, all this, and my parachute and everything. I was weighing in about $130, $140 total, maybe a little more. It was a heavy load. And I tried to exit that aircraft, and I think I probably got about that far. And I remember just hitting the side of that C-130. Bam, 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 bam. It broke my nose. I was bleeding all over the place. That was a hard jump.
Where was that at?
Where were we jumping into then? Someplace in California in the desert.
Okay.
And the next one, it was at Eglin Air Force Base outside of Holbert. in the Panhandle, and they have the Ranger camp there that's part of the Ranger School, Camp Smith there. And we were jumping on Debbie DZ there. And I had jumped that DZ before, and done a little training with those guys. Now I do a couple of them. So we go out, it's February. They opened the door of this aircraft to jump. It's 17 degrees, and we had gone out over the Gulf of Mexico and we're coming back to land, right? It's 17 degrees. Jump speed is 120 knots,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
So that wind is howling through. Oh, God.
Painful.
Everybody's nuts get small and start going up at the same time,
sure.
So anyway, jumped out, everything was fine. And I lowered my equipment, and there's an 18-foot lowering line that you hook your rucksack up to so you don't break your hip when you hit. You've got that packed rucksack, you want it away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And going, all of a sudden I heard, and I knew exactly what it was. It was hitting trees. And when you're hitting trees, you're supposed to tuck in and do this.
Right.
I did this.
And then cover your
Boom,
face.
boom, boom. I finally got on the ground. I mean, I went through this oak tree. I was bouncing off of limbs. And I went to get up, and holy shit, it hurt so bad. So I said, just lay here, catch your breath a minute, just hold on. And I tried to do it again. I couldn't get my legs to move. Thought, oh my God, don't tell me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this Butterbar second lieutenant walks by, and he goes, "Are you all right?" And I didn't realize he was an officer at first. I said, "Man, I can't feel my legs or anything." So he got a chem light and he broke it. And then I saw the bar on his. I said, "Oh, sorry, sir." He goes, "That's okay." He said, "You can't." He says, "I'll get an FLA over here. We'll get you picked up." Because there was a heavy drop coming in like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So they didn't do that.
Heavy drop is vehicles, artillery pieces, all this shit, and I'm thinking. And I could hear the 130s coming, and I thought, Jesus.
Get me out of here.
And then that Jeep pulled up to get me, and they got the stretcher out and took me off. And in fact, as we were leaving that drop zone, through the back up there, I could see the heavy drop start. I missed it by minutes,
Right.
And I spent 64 days in traction. You were just a baby. I mean, you were a baby.
Okay.
And in the hospital there at Fort Bragg, 64 days. I had a spinal tap. I had everything.
What was wrong with me? What happened?
I ruptured a disc.
Your back?
Yeah. They were gonna put me on the Army on a medical, and I convinced the ortho surgeon. I said, if I pass a PT test, will you sign the paperwork to keep me in? And he said, I'll give you 6 months to recuperate and 6 weeks to get in shape.
Damn.
After that, I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. It weren't easy. That was pretty hard.
Yeah.
But I did it. Hell, we had just bought the house on Hackberry. I mean, just bought it.
And what did you primarily do in the military?
Well, it's what's called ONI, Operation Intel. That kind of stuff.
Right.
And I worked at several different levels on that. I worked on the lower levels and the higher levels of it all. And, pretty fortunate, man. I got trained on foreign weapons, and I got to go places I never thought Tommy Bishop would go to in his life. Got to do exchanges with the Brits and the Aussies, and spent a lot of time in Central South America. I'm a pretty lucky guy.
Yeah.
I truly am. I mean, I got through all this and I didn't get shot. I got banged up quite a bit, but I never got shot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what did that consist of? Like, what kind of stuff did you do as far as?
Well, it would depend on, there's different types of missions. Sometimes you would go in and you would assist the host nation military in either
Training.
holding on to their government or trying to overthrow a dictator.
Gotcha.
Okay, depending.
Right.
You know, it's all political, man.
Right.
And you know, actually, the first real combat I saw was in Grenada.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, a million years ago.
What was like Desert Shield and Desert Storm like?
It was a little different. I was at a higher level in the intel hierarchy at that point. I was in what's called the J2, and they provided all the intelligence to Central Command. Okay. And right before we went to Saudi Arabia, Colonel Leidy came in and took, well, he was General Leidy then. He was a BG of 1-star. He came in and took over the J2 as the new director of the intelligence. The best officer, hands down, of all of them put together in one, man. This guy, he was a smart guy. He was a law graduate from Georgetown University, man. This guy had brains.
Yeah.
And just, he and his wife were just the nicest people. Well, anyway, working for him, we were doing a lot of, you know, you got to realize this is, you know, late 80s, early 90s, man, and we're just really learning how to send traffic from halfway around the world, you know, to another point, you know, in less than 3 or 4 hours or something, you know. It was the first time doing stuff like that. And I remember we leased a satellite from AT&T. Do you know what it costs to rent a whole or lease a whole satellite for a duration?
I can't imagine.
Holy crap. I didn't realize till after the war I was
That's
seeing
what
some
we're
of the
spending
expenses
on,
that were
yeah.
went out.
Because the budgets get approved for crazy
Millions.
stuff at those times, right? That's why
Millions.
That's why I know that a lot of times, sometimes even though like war is so frowned upon, it's sort of like the military kind of wants it a little, or the government kind of wants it a little bit.
Well,
because
the private sector
money,
wants it because it
right,
means
yeah.
money. Anyway.
So I watched that movie about the war dogs where they were
Yeah,
volunteering
yeah.
off of the.
Exactly. So, I'll never forget, we had a 19.6 line, and over the telephone, we could send a page in like 28 minutes.
Before email.
Okay,
Yeah.
if as long as the signal stuck and there was no interruptions, yeah. But this was all,
High
you know,
end.
this was Star Wars stuff at the time, you know.
Right.
And a couple of missions came up right before the ground war. And Colonel Leidy tapped myself and another guy that he had worked with in the past. And we helped get out a bunch of people from the embassy in Kuwait City while it was occupied. We pulled it off, man. We got, I think it was 24 people we got out
Really?
without being detected. They didn't know until the next day when they went to see everybody and they were gone.
Who was it though? The.
Embassy personnel.
Oh, okay, they had them.
And one of the guys that got stuck there, he was from my unit, you know. And he goes, "I'm so glad to see your face." Because he was hiding the fact that he was military, you know. He said if they'd have known, they'd have just shot me, you know.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah. And 4 months after the war was over, I went back to Kuwait, and that's where I had my last jump in the military. I jumped with a group called SOCCENT, Special Operations Command Central. And we go to get our JM briefing, This guy's got this chart up. He's got these red lines through. I said, that looks like half the DZ. What's going on there? I thought construction or something.
Right.
He goes, there's still mines in there. We haven't cleared that part yet, so don't land over there. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. That was pretty funny. There was a couple of people there that didn't have a lot of experience. It was like some of these guys, a couple of these guys that were admin guys. It was their first deployment. And we did, I hope the wind doesn't catch your chute and you end up over there.
But overall, probably being there wasn't as scary as, say, like when we went over in the 2000s. Because we weren't in Iraq, though.
Well, it was a different mission. It was a total different mission. I mean, I can remember seeing hundreds and hundreds of Iraqis waving this paper that we dropped, surrendering. I was in a helicopter and we threw over. And sometimes from sand dune to sand dune, they were lined up walking towards the border.
We're walking towards the border.
Iraqis surrendering.
Just to be.
They were done with. Well, the war was basically over. We had kicked their ass off.
Yeah.
And we had, by the time it was all said and done, we had thousands and thousands of prisoners. We didn't handle all that shit afterwards very well.
Mm-hmm.
We screwed it up.
Obviously not.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Saddam was an asshole. And he was a mass murderer.
Right, no doubt.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, he was, him and his psychotic kids, you know. But the one thing, he kept peace in the Middle East,
right.
You know.
Yeah, there was some order.
Well, order. Let's say order, not
order,
peace. He
order.
kept order. You're absolutely right. And what happened? Some cake-eating, you know, tit-sucking guy made a decision. We need to dismiss all these officers that were in the Iraqi army and just get rid of them. Well, when they did that, they got rid of the entire leadership.
So it was power vacuum.
There was a huge power vacuum, and then Al-Qaeda, they filled the void.
Power, yeah.
And then after Al-Qaeda, ISIS filled the void. We really screwed that
Well,
up.
then I think I think Junior, went in there and tried to finish what Dad started, and it didn't quite work out that way.
It never does. I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of guys in the military, the younger guys want to prove themselves.
Sure.
But as you get older,
You realize.
you realize, who's going to win in this war?
Nobody.
Nobody's going to win.
Wars are terrible. They're stupid.
All these people are going to die, and we're going to go home.
Mm-hmm. But not everybody's going to come home alive.
But I always enjoyed mixing with other cultures, and like the Kenyans. There was this one Kenyan. We will order before we got there. Look, they do, it was a British colony at one time.
Right.
They have a lot of the British customs,
Sure, makes sense.
So we got invited to high tea, and if you got invited, you better go. You better attend, And there was this one Kenyan guy who kind of got attached to me. I was helping him with a few things, and then at high tea, he'd come over. Oh, Mr. Thomas. He called me Mr. Thomas. I said, Tom is fine, man. You don't know Mr. You don't have to call me Sergeant or, oh, Mr. Thomas. Oh, okay. And he said, I would love for my family to meet you. You're such a nice man. I said, well, I appreciate that. He says, I'd love to have you come to my house for a meal. And they're so dirt poor over there, man. That's
Right.
a huge invitation.
Sure.
So I said, oh, really? I said, where do you live? He says, you see that mountaintop right there? I said, about 400 kilometers on the other side.
Man.
And I said, I apologize. I said, but
There's no way I can make
they
it
would
out,
never
man.
let me travel that far.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My wife and my children would love to meet you. And I said, well, you give your wife and your children my love. And he had 5 kids. and I had 5 $1 singles. I said, give one of these to each of your children. He thought that was the greatest thing.
Yeah. That's great.